I'm Jennifer I from the Atlanta City Council, representing District 6 and this year's chair of the Finance Executive Committee.
Do you have a question, comment, or a suggestion related to the City of Atlanta's proposed fiscal year 2021 budget? The Atlanta City Council wants to hear from residents and stakeholders. Which services do you feel need to be prioritized in the fiscal year 2021 budget, which begins July 1st? The general fund budget is set at $673.4 million. There are several ways to reach out and submit your questions and comments to the Council today and during the virtual town hall meeting Tuesday, June 2nd at 6:15 p.m. Send your email to budgettalk@atlantaga.gov. If you'd prefer, you can submit a video of your question, as long as it's 15 seconds or less. For social media, tweet us at ATL Council using the hashtag ATLBudget. Submit your questions by messaging us on our Facebook page at ATL Council. To call in your questions, dial 404-546-1928, or you can text us at 404-548-2885.
We know how important the city budget is to you. We welcome your thoughts and your feedback. Thank you.
Can one girl in a small town, an architect in a major city, and a suburban high school coach shape the future of the United States? Yes, they can. Because every 10 years, the census gives us that power. You can shape your future by responding to the 2020 census. Where do we need new roads to make our lives easier? Where will new school programs help our children thrive? Where could a new health clinic benefit neighborhoods? The 2020 census will inform these decisions and shape how billions of dollars will be distributed to communities like yours each year. And in 2020, you can respond to the census online, by phone, or by mail. It's easy, safe, and important. Make sure you and everyone you know is counted. Now is the time for you to get involved. Your community needs you. Together, we can educate and excite, inspire and make sure every voice is heard. Together, we can shape our future.
Hi, I'm Jennifer I from the Atlanta City Council, representing District 6 and this year's chair of the Finance Executive Committee.
Do you have a question, comment, or a suggestion related to the City of Atlanta's proposed fiscal year 2021 budget? The Atlanta City Council wants to hear from residents and stakeholders. Which services do you feel need to be prioritized in the fiscal year 2021 budget, which begins July 1st? The general fund budget is set at $673.4 million. There are several ways to reach out and submit your questions and comments to the Council today and during the video of your question, as long as it's 15 seconds or less. For social media, tweet us at ATL Council using the hashtag ATLBudget. Submit your questions by messaging us on our Facebook page at ATL Council. To call in your questions, dial 404-546-1928, or you can text us at 404-548-2885.
We know how important the city budget is to you. We welcome your thoughts and your feedback. Thank you. I'm Jennifer I from the Atlanta City Council, representing District 6 and this year's chair of the Finance Executive Committee.
Do you have a question, comment, or a suggestion related to the City of Atlanta's proposed fiscal year 2021 budget? The Atlanta City Council wants to hear from residents and stakeholders. Which services do you feel need to be prioritized in the fiscal year 2021 budget, which begins July 1st? The general fund budget is set at $673.4 million. There are several ways to reach out and submit your questions and comments to the Council today and during the virtual Town Hall meeting Tuesday, June 2nd at 6:15 p.m. Send your email to budgettalk@atlantagA.gov. If you'd prefer, you can submit a video of your question, as long as it's 15 seconds or less. For social media, tweet us at ATL Council using the hashtag ATLBudget. Submit your questions by messaging us on our Facebook page at ATL Council. To call in your questions, dial 404-546-1928, or you can text us at 404-548-2885.
We know how important the city budget is to you. We welcome your thoughts and your feedback. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Transportation Committee here at the Atlanta City Council. I have the pleasure of serving as your chairman, Councilman Andre Dickens. On the line, we have our vice chairwoman, Marcia Collier Overstreet. We also have committee members Antonio Brown, Jennifer Ide, Amir Faroki, and Matt Westmoreland. We will be joined soon by J.P. Mazikite. So we do constitute a quorum, so we can begin. If there are no objections, we will assume the posture that the agenda has been adopted, if there are no objections. And then also, if there are no objections by council members, we will accept the approval of the minutes as printed and prepared. Now, we may go into public comment pertaining to items on the agenda. Ms. Pulandini, can you read off what our public comment statements are?
Yes, Mr. Chair. One moment, please.
Hi, my name is Paula Frederick. I am a 30-year Atlanta resident. I live on Boulevard Southeast across from Grant Park and the new parking lot for the zoo. I'm calling with concern about the speed of traffic on Boulevard Southeast. It's increasingly an issue. It's even more of an issue now that there's not a whole lot of traffic because of the coronavirus. We've had a number of neighborhood efforts through the 30 years that I've lived here aimed at slowing traffic down, but nothing has happened. And so a group of neighbors on Boulevard has started a nonprofit called slowdownboulevard.com. We have gotten signs printed that remind people that the speed limit there is 25 miles per hour. I've never seen anybody go 25. I've seen people go as fast as 70, according to my app on my phone. We are now selling these signs for $20, and our goal is to buy some radar speed detector machines that we can post that would have the flashing lights that say how fast people are going. I really think a lot of people don't realize that the speed limit is 25 despite the size, and that they aren't intentional in trying to put anybody's life at risk. They're just not paying attention. So we'd appreciate your support for whatever you can do to help with this. I think increased enforcement, a more constant police presence with people, police giving out traffic tickets would be helpful, but I understand that they are stretched thin and that may not happen. Radar signs would be great. More of a presence at the crossings like they have on Cherokee Avenue across the park or like they have at Piedmont Park would also be a good idea, but we don't have any of those on Boulevard for reasons which escape me, other than I'm told that it's some sort of state highway or something. But still, it looks like we could get the same thing that Cherokee has and that Piedmont Park has. Thanks for whatever you can do to slow traffic down. Someone is going to be killed at some point because people are literally going faster on that street than they go on I-20 most of the time. Thank you. Goodbye.
Greetings to you, committee members and staff. A special greetings to you, citizens of Atlanta, observing your government in action. And Howard, senior advocate, public policy analyst. Under ordinances for phase 3, item G5, the ordinance 20-0-1380. That ordinance authorizes the use of $4.6 million for the purpose of modernizing traffic signals, communication corridors, complete streets, and intersection improvement projects to increase roadway system capacity. For the year 2006, residents and senior citizens along Campbellton Road were promised that very thing in projects labeled Campbellton Road Phase 1, Campbellton Road Phase 2, and Campbellton Road Phase 3. That 2006 2006 meeting was held at Mount Carmel Baptist Church because people posing as neighborhood planning unit leaders at that time were not allowed such matters to be placed on NPUR agendas. Since that time, residents, one persistent female senior citizen in particular, have been inquiring about the progress of those promises. On 3 occasions, a certified resident organization, which is also protected under provisions of the United States Housing and Urban Development Department, known as HUD, has been denied the right to be placed on the agenda of Neighborhood Planning Unit R to discuss matters such as these on behalf of senior citizens and other residents in senior zones along the Campbellton Road corridor. I ask that you take the necessary steps to have this legislation placed on the Neighborhood Planning Unit R agenda for the upcoming meeting on Wednesday, June 3rd. Be forewarned that any attempt by anyone to add any noteworthy information to the tightly controlled agenda of NPUR will be met with fierce resistance from the NPUR. Will be met with resistance from the NPUR 9. Anthony Robinson, Corliss Clare, Ricardo Jacobs, Annette L. Scott, Alfred White, Allison Hathaway, Sherry Williams, and cohorts.
Good morning. This is Julia Polidindi, staff for the Transportation Committee. The Transportation Committee meeting is being conducted remotely as advertised and as in accordance with the OCGA 50-14-1. The meeting will be conducted in conformance with Robert's Rules of Order and the Rules of Council as authorized by the City Code. The public may access the meeting by dialing 877-579-6743, conference ID 831-599-1256, which was noted on the May 22nd, 2020 public meeting notice. The public may also view the meeting on Channel 26, the Council's homepage at citycouncil.atlantaga.gov, or the Council's Facebook and Twitter pages via @ATL Council. All presentations are available on the Atlanta City Council Transportation presentation page. The agenda was published and made available on May 22nd, 2020 via atlantacitygA.iqm2.com. All persons present on the remote council meeting conference bridge are requested to mute your phones and speakers. Additionally, speakers must be acknowledged by the presiding officer prior to speaking. Each council member is requested to open your Outlook email and minimize the screen. Amendments, substitutes, and informational documents have been distributed to committee members beforehand. Thank you all in advance for your cooperation.
Thank you, Ms. Polidindi. If you could, please send that first public commenter to Josh Rowan and I would say Carla Smith, because I think, and maybe you too, Amir. I don't know what parts of Boulevard she was referring to, but Ms. Polidindi, send that information, that request, that website, that nonprofit that they started to those associated council members and to Mr. Rowan. And then I'm trying to figure out what to do with Mr. Howard's comments related to NPUR. But I think Marcia Carey Overstreet is on here, so she heard it as that area's representative. So that's that. All right, can we now move to ordinance for first read?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
A lot of them.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, okay.
Item number 1, 20-1376, an ordinance by Transportation Committee to reallocate funding previously allocated to the Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority for the installation of creative wayfinding along Hilliard Street Southeast to the Atlanta Downtown Improvement District to implement creative wayfinding along Hilliard Street Southeast in an amount not to exceed $75,000.00, authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with ADID and for other purposes. Item number 2, 20-1377, an ordinance by Transportation Committee to amend Chapter 150, Article 2, Administration and Enforcement, Article 3, General Rules of Vehicle Operation, Article 4, Stopping, Standing, and Parking, Article 8, Miscellaneous Rules, Article 10, Loading and Unloading of Intercity Buses, and Article 9, Loading and Unloading of Intercity Buses, and Article 10, Shareable Dockless Mobility Devices of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, to align roles and responsibilities transferring from the Department of Public Works, Office of Transportation, and Office of Capital Projects to the Atlanta Department of Transportation to update certain provisions and for other purposes. Item number 3, 20-01378, an ordinance by Transportation Committee to amend Chapter 2 Administration, Articles 5 and 10 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to align roles and responsibilities transferring from the Department of Public Works' Office of Transportation and Office of Capital Projects to the Atlanta Department of Transportation, to repeal sections 2-262 and 2-263, to add new sections 2-283 and 2-284 to update certain provisions and for other purposes. Item number 4, 20-01379, an ordinance by Transportation Committee to amend Chapter 138, Articles 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to align roles and responsibilities transferring from the Department of Public Works' Office of Transportation and Office of Capital Projects to the Atlanta Department of Transportation to update certain provisions and for other purposes. Item number 5, 20-01380, an ordinance by Transportation Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer or his designee to amend the FY 2020 General Government Capital Outlay Fund budget on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation by transferring between projects the sum of $4,658,516.00 in transportation impact fees for use under FC-8552 traffic signal maintenance for the purpose of modernizing traffic signals, communication corridors, complete streets, and intersection improvement projects to increase roadway system capacity and for other purposes. Item number 6, 20-01381, an ordinance by Transportation Committee to amend Part 3, Land Development Code, Part 15, Land Subdivision Ordinance, Part 16, Zoning, and Part 19, Fees, Permits, Licenses, and Charges of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to align roles and responsibilities transferring from the Department of Public Works' Office of Transportation and Office of Capital Projects to the Atlanta Department of Transportation to update certain provisions and for other purposes. Item number 7, 20-01382, an ordinance by Transportation Committee to amend various chapters and miscellaneous sections of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to align roles and responsibilities transferring from the Department of Public Works' Office of Transportation and Office of Capital Projects to the Atlanta Department of Transportation to update certain provisions and for other purposes. Item number 8, 20-01383, an ordinance by Transportation Committee amending the FY 2020 Intergovernmental Grant Fund budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations, authorizing the City of Atlanta to accept additional federal funds from the Georgia Department of Transportation on behalf of the Department of Public Works in an amount not to exceed $1,333,981.00 for the SR 260 Glenwood Avenue, US 23, SR 42 Moreland Avenue intersection improvement project. Authorize the mayor or her designee to execute any future agreements with the Georgia Department of Transportation associated with the project and for other purposes. And that concludes our.
Thank you. Thank you. We will accept all first reads if there are no objections. All right, now let's move on to our ordinances for second read.
Item number 9, 20-01340, an ordinance by Transportation Committee to amend the FY 2020 DOA Series 2015 Commercial Paper Program, DOA Series 2016 Bond Anticipation Notes, DOA Series 2016 S3G Commercial Paper Pro, 2019 AMT GARBs, 2019 C non-AMT PFC bonds, 2019 D AMT PFC bond budget by transferring to and from appropriations in a total amount of $23,775,660.00 for reimbursement of the DOA Series 2015 Commercial Paper Program, DOA Series 2016 Bond Anticipation Note, DOA Series 2016 S3G Commercial Paper Pro funds and for other purposes.
All right, let's hear from the administration.
Good morning. John Selden, the General Manager of Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. And we'd like to refund our commercial paper from our 2015-2016 commercial paper for $23,775,000. And we have completed our enabling work, or some of our enabling work, on our T5 North Gate Extension, our Delta GSE facility, and our pedestrian bridges are nearing completion, and we would like to take our passenger facility charge bonds and our general aviation revenue bonds and replace that, have that fund our commercial paper to make us whole. Thank you.
All right, move approval. I make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Perosi.
Let's prepare a vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 10, 20-0-1357, an ordinance by Councilmember Martha Collier Overstreet to create the Airport CARES Act grant fund and a new project number in the city's Oracle financial system to amend the fiscal year 2020 budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations the proceeds of the Federal Aviation Administration Grant Agreement 3-13-008-123-2020 in the amount of $338,535,265.00 for the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act grant and for the purposes. And there is a substitute in your package which would update the project numbers.
I make a motion to bring forward the substitute. Is there a second?
Second, Overstreet.
Okay, that's seconded by Overstreet. Let's vote to bring forward the substitute.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is now before you.
Okay, Mr. Selden, or someone else from the administration.
John Selden, back again.
Okay.
This paper is to set up an account to accept our CARES money from our FAA, and it's $338 million, and we're going to use that money to replace lost revenue due to COVID-19, and this will allow us to record anticipations and appropriations of funds into a specific account for our auditing procedures and to provide us a clear oversight into the funds and what they're used for.
All right. I have one member ready to speak. Let me bring forward this speaker. Why is it not showing who the speaker is? It just says one is ready.
The speaker's
Okay, go ahead, Matt. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Selden, I know that this piece of legislation is just creating the account. What's the timeline and conversation going to be about how these dollars are allocated? And what's the timeline on when they need to be spent? I suspect it might be different than the other CARES funding we've been talking about.
Yes, there is no time limit on the amount that the dollars can be spent. So these dollars are meant to replace lost revenue going forward. We are going to spend some of this money to replace the revenue that we are missing from fiscal year 20. But I would say a majority of this money will be spent in fiscal year 21, and that will due to the relief that we have provided to our airlines and to our concessionaires, and due to the reduction in passengers, obviously parking and concessions revenue.
And how will that work technically? So when will you come back to council for any necessary actions to designate money for FY20, or when will you come back in FY21?
So we'll probably come back in June for the first tranche of money that we're going to use. But the way this is set up is that we will pay bills that occur. In other words, and let's just use the power bill. We will pay the power bill, and if we do not have the revenues to pay that power bill, we will go pay the bill, and we will go to the FAA with the bill itself, the invoice. They will reimburse this account with that money, and then we will pay the bill. So that's the way the account is set up, is that we will send invoices to the FAA, and they will reimburse us back. But we will probably be coming back to you in June and then throughout 2021.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think I see another member.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Selden, I just want to piggyback off of Councilmember Westmoreland's question. I know, so are these funds being allocated from the CARES Act? or are they being allocated through the FAA in a separate pot of funding?
So they're being allocated through the FAA by the Treasury. So the Treasury authorized the CARES Act. The Treasury then funneled the money as any other grant to the FAA, and the FAA will be the ones monitoring the invoices, authorizing payment back to the airport. Just as any other grant we get, we pay the bill up front and then we get reimbursed.
Okay, so the reason why I'm asking is because I'm aware of the Treasury issuing the funding for the CARES Act, but I know that through the CARES Act funding, there are limitations within what Congress has set for allowable expenditures, to utilize this specific funding. So I was just wondering if, because the city is not able to use the funds for revenue loss, and I know you mentioned that you are using the funds for revenue loss, and I'm just curious as to if the criteria is different for the airport as opposed to the city and the regulations that were set by Congress on the usage of those funds, and if it's different for the FAA as opposed to the city and the reimbursement that we've gotten around the $88 million.
I would say it's different. We can use these funds for any expense that is authorized via our grant assurances and the things that we can normally pay with airport money. But I think that the bigger difference is that we pay the bills to begin with here at the airport, and then we get revenue to make ourselves whole from our airline partners and concessionaires and parking. So in this case, instead of getting the money from those revenue sources, the revenue source we're going to pull from is from the grant money that is sitting in the FAA account that we will transfer into this account to make ourselves whole. I hope that helps.
Yes. I appreciate that, Mr. Selden. I just was seeking just clarity on that, just because we as a city have been looking at ways where we can use the CARES Act funding to recoup some of our revenue loss, and I know you all are able to, but there's one congressional bill that passed out allowing the funding that has been distributed across the nation to our local municipalities and through the FAA to our local airports. So I appreciate that clarity. Thank you so much. Mr. Chair, I'll yield back to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown. Next is Mrs. Marcy Collier, Overstreet.
Yes, thank you, Chair Dickens. I just have a couple questions. I understood what Councilmember Brown was asking, but in my readings, and Mr. Selden, let me know if I'm way wrong, but in my readings, I think that federal dollars, FAA holding the actual dollars as opposed to the city, is what makes the difference with our airport. I think that it being a federal matter, just as like a post office, it's federal. So I think that makes a difference in how the funds are actually allocated. But is that correct, Mr. Selden?
I would say, in a 30,000-foot look, yes, the FAA is holding the money. We are sending invoices that are appropriate for the airport to spend those dollars on, whether it be salaries, concrete, wires, lights, and we send that invoice. We pay that invoice to our suppliers and our staff, and we send that invoice to the FAA, and they send us that money back. So in a sense, they're holding the money for us, where it is not just a lump sum grant right to us for $338 million. Go spend it on, right. You're only authorized to spend it on these things. They're actually the keeper of the funds.
Right, and I'm glad that we're making that really clear today, because the general population would think that because the airport governs that, the city is over the operations of the airport, that those funds are held in the city, and they're not.
No.
So I want to be clear that it's a federal holding space, and we have our city holding space, and they're two different spaces.
Yes.
So want to talk a little bit more about the council's role in understanding what you all have planned for those funds. So are we to get that information before you submit your invoices? Are we to have any votes about, any of it? I just want to know what you all have planned, because I don't have a clear view of what the actual steps will be as far as how you guys are choosing which companies, which bills to pay, which, we just need to know more about your selection process, if you can.
Sure, and we're working on certain programs going forward, and they're still under review as we speak, because we've just started this. But we will get a bill, we'll pay the power bill, and then we will go to the FAA. We will not come to City Council to say we need to go get $3 million from our CARES money that is sitting in the FAA, and that's what this account is set up, is to receive those funds going forward. And as a plan for how we implement the CARES money and what we do to replace revenues and which ones we replace and how we do it, that is being worked, is under review and being worked as we speak with the administration.
Okay, and one last time. So you are saying that we will know about the invoices in totality afterwards, or not at all?
That's a good question. I believe you will know you always will be able to get the information from us that what we have gone to the FAA for and how much is in the account, how much is left. But we do not. I don't believe we're going to come back to you every time we're going to go ask for a reimbursement. Our budget will also outline some of the things we're planning on using the CARES money for in our budget presentation coming up in June.
Okay. Okay, if I have any other questions, I'll ask later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All righty, so we have heard from all the speakers, and now we have an item before us that has been substituted. I make a motion that we approve on substitute. Is there a second?
Second, Overstreet.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded by Overstreet. Let's prepare our vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 68 0 nays. This item is favorable on substitute and will now go before Finance Executive Committee. Item number 11, 20-01364, an ordinance by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone authorizing the mayor or her designee to install traffic calming devices on Tuckawanna Drive Southwest between Cascade Road Southwest to Benjamin E. Mays Drive Southwest to waive portions of Section 138-84D of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances and for the purposes, and the department has requested that this item be held.
All right, motion to hold. Is there a second?
Second, Overstreet.
Okay, let's prepare a vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 68 0 nays. This item will be held. Item number 12, 20-R3995, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or her designee to execute a project management agreement with the Little Five Points Community Improvement District for the Little Five Points Smart Mobility Improvement Study to execute any required agreements for project participation and implementation and for other purposes. And there's an amendment in your packet which attaches the project management agreement, Exhibit A.
Yes, I'll make a motion that we bring forward the amendment. Is there a second?
Second, Faruqi.
Okay, let's vote on the amendment.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 6 nays. This item has been amended.
Okay. Does anybody, who from Little 5 Point CID, or is it, who's going to speak to this from the administration?
Mr. Chair, I believe Commissioner Rowan would be speaking to this, but we're just having a little bit of technical difficulty ensuring he's on the line.
Okay. Let's see. I mean, I've read it. I understand what it's about. We do these type of agreements often. I don't know if the council members have any questions while we're waiting on Mr. Rowan to further explain.
This is Councilmember Faruqi. I do not have any questions, and I by nature of my position on council, also sit on the CID, Little 5 Point CID board, and just would encourage us to pass this. This is fairly common interface with the city and then I guess our new DOT, but I welcome Commissioner Rowan's reflections on it.
Okay, so we'll accept that as a motion to approve by Faruqi. I'll second it. Let's prepare our vote for voting.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 68 nays. This item is favorable as amended. Our next item is number 13, 20R3996, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or her designee to enter into a revocable license agreement with Georgia Building Authority for the Piedmont Avenue Traffic Communications Corridor on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation to authorize the mayor or her designee to execute any required agreements for project participation and implementation and for other purposes.
Okay, is Mr. Rowan, is he able to communicate now?
We're trying to get him connected, sir.
Okay. Mr. Faruqi, well, no, this will be Mr. I. Well, where is this on Piedmont? Where is
Chairman Dickens?
Hey, there you are, Mr. Rowan.
I'm not sure what was going on. So the previous item was for mobility studies to improve safety and walkability along the Euclid Avenue corridor. T-Block project with ARC funding, one of our complete streets projects that we're advancing into the design phase.
Okay, good, great. Thank you for that update. We passed it based on information that we read about it, but that's helpful information you also provided. So now for the Piedmont.
So that's more fiber optic cable that we're installing, and we need basically we need a license from GBA to put underground conduit in a pole box on state property.
Okay, all right, I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Faruqi.
Street second.
Okay, it sounds like Faruqi first, so let's go with Faruqi as the seconder.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 68 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 14, 20R3997, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter a termination agreement with Alteon Training LLC, now known as Boeing U.S. Training and Flight Services LLC, for that certain lease, dated September 9th, 2003, for a 6.2-acre parcel located at Godby Road and Old National Highway and for other purposes.
Mr. Selden.
Good morning. It's actually Michael Smith, Deputy General Manager for the airport. This legislation would authorize us to terminate the lease with Boeing Corporation. for the training center that's located on Garvey Road. We're attempted to work out some deal with Boeing. Boeing prepaid their 40-year lease payments, which started back in 2003. And so we've recovered all of the lease payments for the particular piece of property. So this would give the facility back to the city in total. Building haven't been built. We had an underlying land lease only for the premises. And our plans are to, once we get it back, to put the facility out for lease through the RFP.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Brown.
All right, that's a second by Brown. Let's prepare a vote.
Mr. Chair, could I ask a question too, if you don't mind?
Yes. Yes, you may.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Michael, I was just curious, what happened with Boeing and why things did not work out, which caused the building to be converted back over to the city?
Boeing ran the training center for a number of years, and actually probably about 2 years ago, they ceased operating the facility, I guess doing several pieces of cutbacks in their operations totally across the nation with Boeing. And so since they had already prepaid us the rent, they just decided to leave the premises. They attempted to also lease the premises, but that fell through with them, and so we continue to try and work with them. And so now we're just going to go ahead and terminate the lease in total and take the property back.
Okay, understood. Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right, Miss. Well, we had a mover, a seconder, and we're voting now. Can all council members please vote? Decide. I see. I think it's still there. You go.
Vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 15, 20R3998, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or her designee to execute an amendment to FC 9521, Fixed Base Operations Services Agreement at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport to provide temporary rental relief for a period of 4 months beginning on June 1, 2020 and ending on September 30th, 2020 in response to the COVID-19 pandemic crisis and for the purposes.
All right, Mr. Selden. Actually, we're going to hold this item, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. I don't think we're ready for this yet, so I make a motion to hold. Here a second.
Second, Westmoreland.
Okay.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 6 yeas, 0 nays. This item will be held. Item number 16, 20R3999, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or her designee to execute the second renewal option of agreement number FC-8816, operation and maintenance of the ATL Fire Training Center, formerly known as the Atlanta Airport Fire and Rescue Training Facility at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport with Carrilla Fire Training Facilities, Inc., for a second renewal period of 1 year commencing on July 1, 2020 in an amount not to exceed $180,000.00. All services will be charged to and paid from the accounts listed and for the purposes.
All right, General Manager Selden or Michael.
Yes, sir. John Selden, the General Manager of Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. I apologize for my pit stop. But this is our Fire Rescue Training Center. The contract was led in 2016 for 3 years. These Carrilla Fire Training Facilities, Inc., they do our operations and maintenance of our fire training center, which if you're ever flying and see a very large plume of black smoke, That's how we train our firefighters here. With live fires, it's a jet fuel fire trainer. Carrilla does our spring startups because the ground freezes, so we have to winterize our system. They do quarterly inspections or winter shutdowns, and they do repairs to keep the system up and running, and they do a great job. Additionally, we bring firefighters in from around the country, from other airports that don't have such a great facility. And last year we made $50,000 in revenue by training other firefighters with our facilities that help us offset our costs. So we're looking to execute our first renewal option for 1 year.
Okay, I make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Faruqi.
Okay, let's prepare for vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. 68 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 17, 20R4000, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or her designee to exercise the 1-year option period and execute contract renewal option number 1 for FC 7105 Parking Operation Management Services with ABM Lanier Hunt, Atlanta Airport Parking at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport in an amount not to exceed $478,062.68. All contracted services will be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for the purposes.
General Manager Selden?
Yes, sir. So this is the ABM Lanier Hunt joint venture. They run our parking lots, and this is the management fee attached to it. This management fee is based on the staffing levels that we that we request them to provide to the airport to manage our 30,000+ parking spaces. If you look at the cost, this year the cost is going up compared to last year because the budget is set up just in case we recover very quickly. We have finished our ATL Select parking lot. It's an 1,800 space parking lot off Sullivan Road. That's ready to go when we need it, which will require staff. And our ATL West parking deck, our 5,700 space parking deck, will open up in the spring if need be. So the 478 is the max. We, based on COVID and the amount of parking we're running right now, we will most likely underrun that number going forward because that's directly related to the staffing that we request them to provide. Thank you.
All right, I make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Overstreet, second.
Second.
Let's vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 68 nays. This item is favorable, and that concludes our legislative items.
All right, now let's go on to our presentation. I think our first presentation is, I think the quicker one would be the MARTA TOD, North Avenue. So let's take that. Good morning, this is Jacob Vallow. Can you hear me? Yes, we can. Great. Good morning, Chairman Dickens and Vice Chairwoman Collier Overstreet and members of the Transportation Committee. My name is Jacob Vallow, and I serve as the Senior Director of Transit-Oriented Development and Real Estate at MARTA. And I'll share a few slides this morning about our Transit-Oriented Development Program, simply to set a backdrop for my colleague Debbie Frank. She'll be providing an overview of the North Avenue TOD. The MARTA TOD program is the real estate and community development effort through which MARTA collaborates with qualified developers to build projects on MARTA-owned properties. Our land and air rights hold unique potential to advance community development goals and attract new riders while also providing revenue for the transit system. TOD efforts reduce auto use and increase transit ridership by directly linking MARTA's transportation network with housing and commercial opportunities. MARTA TOD also supports social infrastructure in the communities it operates. Initiatives include programs for affordable housing, providing fresh, quality food, public arts, soccer for underserved youth, and spaces for minority and small business incubation. As you know, MARTA is currently undergoing the largest transit expansion in its history, with the power to activate a network of new TOD sites and communities as more destinations come online. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Mr. Vallow,
The
there's a slight
origination-
delay.
There is, yes. Thank you.
There's a slight delay.
Jim. Since the origination of TOD at MARTA, and including our current work, we have 23 TODs in various stages of completion, under construction, in negotiations, and in procurement and planning. System-wide, we have a mix of uses from office and retail to multifamily residential. We are fiduciaries to our senior leadership, MARTA board, and our jurisdictional partners, and we oversee a sizable effort and portfolio of projects, which when completed will result in approximately 5 million square feet of commercial space and 5,319 multifamily units, of which 1,337 are affordable. These affordable units represent 25% of the total multifamily unit inventory. The legend to the right of the map shows the corresponding station and the stage we are currently in with each transit-oriented development. Next slide, please. Our projects in the city of Atlanta, which are currently under construction, include the third phase of TOD at the Edgewood Candler Station, where Columbia Ventures is underway to deliver their project named Link by the fall of 2021. Link has 208 multifamily units with 53 affordable units and 10,000 square feet of office and retail space. As many of you know, Invest Atlanta was very instrumental in making this project happen. Also at Edgewood Candler is a recently completed purpose-built facility for Moving in the Spirit, a nonprofit dance academy. We are happy to have them as a member of our TOD family. At the King Memorial Station, Russell and Place Properties broke ground this year on a 300-unit multifamily project with 100 affordable workforce units and 10,000 square feet of commercial space. This project is expected to deliver in early 2022, and as you also may know, Invest Atlanta helped this project become a reality as well. Meanwhile, we continue to proceed with the documentation process for TOD at the Peachtree Center and Art Center stations and are hopeful to have ground leases in place toward the end of this year. Next slide, please. We have a significant amount of work in the procurement and planning stage as well. In addition to our exciting North Avenue TOD, we are working on the community and stakeholder engagement, pre-development, and planning work to bring RFPs to market for our 6 stations located in opportunity zones. These RFPs are specifically for mixed-income housing, and we are proud of our board's commitment to the level of affordability at the proposed TODs at Vine City, Ashby, Bankhead, H.E. Holmes, West End, and Lakewood Fort McPherson stations. And while we are not ready to act now on a TOD at 5 Points, I think it is important to share that our capital programs team has invited the TOD staff into the pre-planning conversation for the 5 Point station. This is critical as it ensures any transformation of the station will also include the opportunity for more density and hopefully more affordable units to be added downtown. Next slide, please. As mentioned at the beginning of our presentation, MARTA TOD supports social infrastructure in the communities it operates, with a current focus on affordable housing, station soccer, Freshwater Market, Artbound, which is our tremendous public art program, and through our support of iVillage at MLK. I want to share a few brief items with you on the affordable housing, station soccer, and Freshwater Market initiatives. In 2010, our board approved the TOD policy, which states a goal of 20% affordability for our multifamily developments. And I am thrilled to say that we are currently planning to exceed this figure. But we understand we have a ton of work before us. To this end, we dramatically increased our affordable housing efforts in the last 12 months. with the start of construction on units of the King Memorial TOD and at the third phase of development at the Edgewood-Candler station. The first completed phase of the Edgewood-Candler TOD also has affordable units. And so with these projects, there are a total of 175 affordable units. Last year, we also received our board's approval to issue RFPs for the 6 mixed income housing TODs located in opportunity zones, and with a goal of 30% of the units as affordable. We are hard at work to make these projects a reality and to support the city's affordable housing goals. Next slide, please. Station Soccer is currently operating at 5 Points and West End stations, and we're finalizing the planning for additional pitches at H.E. Holmes Station next to iVillage and at Lindbergh Station. Both of these projects are expected to deliver this year. Additionally, we have a recycled and repurposed MARTA rail car, which Station Soccer is programming at the West End Station this year. Next slide, please. We're prepared to start our 6th season of bringing fresh fruits and vegetables to our patrons and community members through our Fresh MARTA Market. However, COVID-19 has changed things quite a bit for us. So while we had planned to open in April at 5 stations, our operating partner, Community Farmers Market, has been hard at work with our MARTA team to develop a safety plan. Assuming the plan is approved in the next 2 weeks, we intend on opening the markets in a staged fashion beginning in mid to late June. This concludes my overview of MARTA's TOD program. I hope it was helpful in your understanding of the work we are doing as your partner. I realize I covered a lot of information in a short amount of time, so we appreciate you and are happy to answer any questions you might have. And then Debbie Frank will share her North Avenue TOD slides with you. Thank you.
Council members, are there any questions? I don't see any speakers lined up. If you are interested in questions, please hit your speaker button. If not, we can move on to the next part of this presentation on the TOD. All right, seeing none, please carry on, Jacob or Debbie.
Thank you, Jacob. Good morning, Chairperson Dickens and the Transportation Committee members. I'm Debbie Frank, Director of Transit-Oriented Development at MARTA, and I will present the North Avenue Transit-Oriented Development Overview. So let me just move to my slides, please. So can we go to next slide? Can you hear me?
There's a slight delay with the stream. We are advancing the slides.
Okay. So, okay. So I'm going to move to slide number 11, North Avenue Station TOD timeline, and we'll go from there. So the procurement process for the North Avenue TOD began in December 2018 when MARTA received an unsolicited proposal to develop the station's property and air rights. MARTA's board approved the release of an RFP in April 2019. We hired a broker, John Lang LaSalle, to assist in the issuance of the RFP and to market the development opportunity at the North Avenue station. The RFP was released in August 2019. The scope of the RFP was developed in concert with the City of Atlanta and in keeping with the city's requirements for development within a half-mile radius of transit. Proposals were due in January 2020, and we will request board approval of award to Portman Holdings next month. Next slide, MARTA due diligence underwriting. As fiduciaries on behalf of the MARTA board, it is our responsibility to present projects that are beneficial for MARTA and have a high probability for implementation. A committee of multidisciplinary MARTA staff, along with the advisory services of JLL, reviewed and analyzed Portman Holdings' proposal for commitment to the participation of disadvantaged business enterprises, which I will go over in more detail in a moment. The committee also examined the financial standing and credit worthiness, the proposed ground lease terms, project design and concept, among a number of other important factors listed here. In addition, a community stakeholder engagement was undertaken with the City of Atlanta City Council members, the City Planning Department, CAP, and the Midtown Alliance. Next slide, please. Developer track record. Portman Holdings, founded in 1957, is headquartered in Atlanta, and it is truly an international company with extensive experience on complex projects, having completed $10 billion of projects, including 15 million square feet of office space and 22 hotels. Next slide, please. Developer track record, Midtown Atlanta. Over the last several years here in Midtown, Portman Holdings has developed such noteworthy projects as Coda at Georgia Tech, a 645 square foot mixed-use building, and 2 buildings for Anthem. Recently, they purchased 1020 Spring Street and plan to construct a mixed-use project. Next slide, please. Development track record, ground lease experience. We appreciate the ground lease experience Portman Holdings brought to the thoughtfulness of their proposal. They have a robust experience in structuring these transactions to be a win-win for both public and private entities. It is also important that we note they have experience financing projects which involves ground leases, again, increasing the likelihood of success for a project like the North Avenue TOD. Next slide, proposed project. The proposed development program includes 480,000 square feet of Class A office, a 275-key hotel, 10,000 square feet of retail, and 800 parking spaces. The parking ratio of 0.8 spaces per 1,000 square feet is consistent with the City of Atlanta's parking ordinance for transit-oriented development. So while the structure appears to be 3 separate buildings, it is a single building. The ground floor is retail and transit. The next several levels are parking, followed by office and hotel floors. Portman Holdings provided a very detailed response to the RFP, and as a matter of fact, during their interview, Portman Holdings shared a 63-page presentation with an impressive amount of detail about the design and programming. Next slide, proposed project station transformation. The North Avenue TOD project is the first time we are redeveloping a station through a public-private partnership, or P3. This is significant for MARTA. $13.1 million of station enhancements are to be constructed by the developer and initially paid for by the developer. The developer will recoup their investment through reduced ground lease payments for a limited time. This structure, especially during a time of increased fiscal discipline, was MARTA's financing options for future station rehabilitation projects. Next slide, proposed project, disadvantaged business enterprises participation. MARTA's DBE goal for the North Avenue TOD is 25%, and MARTA's Office of Diversity and Inclusion will monitor this project to ensure the DB goal is accomplished. Portman Holdings has committed to meeting the 25% DBE participation, which is significant on a $400 million project. As part of their good faith effort, Portman Holdings reached out to 130 DBE companies to explore their interests, and the responses were very positive. To ensure that the 25% DBE participation goal is reached, Portman Holdings will hire a DBE consultant to manage this aspect of the project. Next slide, benefits to MARTA. Although MARTA is expected to receive significant ground lease revenue over the term of the ground lease, there are many other benefits represented by this list, which could be summarized simply as enhancing the customer experience, supporting capital programs, strengthening the MARTA brand, and demonstrating fiscal discipline and responsibility. Next slide, benefits to the City of Atlanta. In addition to the benefits to the authority and its customer, MARTA's jurisdictional partners, the City of Atlanta and Fulton County, stand to benefit as well. This proposed development would generate temporary pre-development and construction jobs while also creating permanent office, hotel, and retail jobs at a wide range of income and skill levels within the community. The station property is currently tax exempt. However, once the development is complete, The property will be placed on the tax rolls, and the expected property tax revenue will be significant. As community improvement districts, both the Midtown Alliance and CAP will receive additional funding from this project as well. And finally, the ground lease revenue collected by MARTA will be redeployed internally to continue the advancement of our affordable housing program. Next slide, affordable housing goals. While the development concept presented by Portman Holdings does not include an affordable housing component, the North Avenue TOD ground lease will provide substantial income to MARTA to support its ongoing efforts to affordable housing. 100% of MARTA's residential TODs have an affordable housing component. And per MARTA's TOD guidelines and policies adopted by the board in 2010, at least 20% of all units are to be affordable. Next slide. This concludes the update on the North Avenue TOD. I thank you for your time, and are there any questions?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. What was that one thing that you said related to parking? You said it's a 0.8.
Yes, 0.8 spaces is what the development would produce per 1,000 square feet of buildable area.
Is that the new goal for Midtown?
Yes, so the new goal for Midtown is no parking or one space per 1,000 square feet. So we're at 0.8 spaces.
Okay, so that sounds like two goals. You said no parking or one space per 1,000. So which one is it? How does that work?
That's the range that they provide.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let some other speakers talk. First, we have Mr. Faroki, then Mr. Brown. Mr. Faroki.
Thank you, Chairman Dickens, and thank you to MARTA for the presentation. I just want to reflect very quickly. I happen to represent the portion of Midtown that includes this site, and just want to commend MARTA for finding a potential partner who has this vision and ambition. I mean, this is dramatically underused property in the center of Midtown that hopefully, if this comes to fruition, can and should support this level of density. And so I'm quite excited to see the boldness in the vision here. Well, I think the market will speak as to whether this project comes to light at this scale, but I'm very glad to see this vision for it in Portman's proposal. I do want to make clear one point. You mentioned that there's no affordable housing at this site, which is true, but from my understanding, there's no housing period at this site.
Correct.
Luxury market, right. And so I think it's important to make clear for anyone who's listening in, this isn't choosing market rate housing over affordable housing, but MARTA and the proposed developer have no housing at this site. I'll also commend MARTA on the 0.8 parking. This sits on top of a MARTA station, obviously. And I think when you think about if this building is built to scale as it's visioned, 800 parking spaces for the thousands of people who will occupy this site, whether they're guests at a hotel or workers in the building, is the direction we want to go, because the number of people in the building will drastically outnumber the number of parking spaces, whether folks are carpooling or single driving or riding MARTA ideally to work here, or from the airport to stay at the hotel. So I think this is a strong step in the right direction, and hopefully we'll see some projects with no parking, but this is a lot better than we see in some other developments in this inner city. So I commend y'all and Portman for that. I think the devil will be in the details as this project comes to light, on how I think the greatest interest will be how this interfaces with the street, the type of retail, what this does to the North Avenue, West Peachtree intersection, which is already heavily pedestrianized, but how do we make that safer as a result of this work here? I think it's a great opportunity. And And that's it. I had no questions. I think the questions will come as this project starts to take flight, but excited to see the vision and ambition for this project and appreciate the presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Faroki. Next is Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also concur with Councilmember Faroki. I think this is a great project if it can be executed and truly aligned with the plan set forth for it. My question is specific to the affordable housing goals. I know that the 20% goal was initially set by MARTA as a minimum back in 2010, which has been over 10 years ago. And I guess my question is, has there been conversation or action taken to reevaluate that minimum requirement? I know as a council person, I'm constantly pushing developers in my community to meet at least a 30% threshold around affordable housing, mixed income affordable housing. You know, and then I also know from having conversations with Councilmember Faroki, he's been pushing to try to get more affordable housing in the Midtown area. And I think that's really important. I think it's important for us to, you know, not just have a bunch of luxury developments stood up in Midtown area and not allowing folks the opportunity to live in these developments that may come from different income backgrounds. So that's something that I just wanted to bring to your attention and ask if this is something that's been in discussion at all.
Yes. So our King Memorial TOD project is reaching 30% affordability. I will say that we hadn't revisited our TOD guidelines to increase that to increase from 20% to 30%, but we made a commitment when we presented to the board to receive their authorization to move forward with what we call our 6 TOD OZs that are occurring on our east and on our west and south line, that we target 30% of affordability at the area, the zip code AMI, and not the area median income for Metro Atlanta. So we feel pretty strong that that approach will allow us to definitely reach more people that are truly in need of a product that allows for even stronger affordability. So the 6 OZs that would be part of the TODs that we're set to release an RFP this year, we will look to receive and hopefully accomplish a 30% affordability within those developments.
Okay, do you think that MARTA would set this as a minimum standard, especially if these developers are being incentivized with OZs, you know, being a part of an opportunity zone and you know, and receiving the benefit of that? Do you think that MARTA would commit to a minimum standard around all TODs within OZs, making the commitment of 30%, where it's not just on a, you know, it's a standard set by MARTA as a whole?
I could say that we can definitely look at it. I would have to, you know, check in with our board and leadership on it, but I can say that we purposely identified that we would seek a 30% affordability for our OZ TOD sites. That's, you know, Bankhead, H.E. Homes, Vine City, Ashby, West End, Lakewood, Fort McPherson, and Jacob mentioned 5 Points that we held off on that because of all the activity that's going on. But if that were to come back online with this package, because it too sits in an opportunity zone, yeah, we would definitely, we've made that commitment and the board approved it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate all the great work, and I hope we can continue to move this conversation forward. A lot of those OZ areas that you mentioned are in my district, and they're some of the lowest income areas. Yeah, and they're some of the lowest income areas in all of the city of Atlanta. So when you begin to talk about those areas and a 30% commitment, I mean, that's good, but especially given those areas and the conditions, I mean, we still have to keep pushing to do more You know, I was speaking to another council member, and he mentioned the total affordable housing in the city is like at around 10%. You know, when you think about that's not good. And I think as partnerships in the city, MARTA and other organizations, we have to be a lot more intentional with the work that we're doing in the city.
Yeah, and I would say we've been pretty fortunate with our TOD projects because we do have, it's a goal, and so far our development partners have met that goal.
That's incredible, and I appreciate all of the work that you're doing and Marta is doing, and Jacob is amazing, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next speaker will be back to Mr. Faroki.
Mr. Chair, I don't hear anyone.
Yeah, I don't hear anyone either. Is Amir Faroki still on the line? Okay, he was listed as a speaker coming after you, Mr. Brown, so he must have dropped off. So let's consider the MARTA presentation as done. Thank you, MARTA, for your presentation, and I'm sure Mr. Faroki can communicate to you offline separately on that. Let's move to the airport presentation.
Thank you.
I don't know if you just heard me, but hello, John Selden, General Manager of Hartsfield Jackson, and we're going to present our fiscal third quarter, January through March 2020, our quarterly report. And on slide 1, you're looking at Taxiway Sierra Juliet at Hartsfield Jackson at the end of March. Those are Delta, McDonnell Douglas 80 aircraft and 90, and there's a couple 737s at the far end. And that's what the airport looked like when we set the onset of COVID started in mid-March this year. Just wanted to give you some pictures here. We also closed our 5th runway to park aircraft at for a little while, and that runway has since reopened. And our partner at Delta, all of these MD-80 aircraft are going to be out of service that you see here at the end of June. And they're Boeing 777s. The 325-seat aircraft will be out of service, the 18 that they have at the end of the year. Delta is in the process of analyzing their fleet and getting rid of older, less fuel-efficient aircraft. And we are in the business of working with them collaboratively and provided them some parking here at Hartsfield Jackson while they do that. Okay, slide 2, please. The agenda, we're going to talk about operations, our economic generation, finance, ground transportation, safety, employees, and our capital program. Slide 3, please. So, impact of COVID on our economic generation, it has been significant, and the timeline is very important, especially here at the airport. The President issued a travel ban to China on January 31st, 2020. Seems like a very long time ago, and it actually is a fairly long time ago. And then due to the spread of the virus throughout Europe, especially Italy and Spain, on March 13th, he issued a travel ban to most of Europe. And by the end of March, global traffic was down 10%. That's globally. We were down certainly much more than that. March 2020 versus March 2019, our domestic traffic was down 52%, and our international traffic was down 53%. When the president implemented the China ban and the European ban, we were always designated one of the 11 funneling airports where passengers who were U.S. citizens were able to come back into the country, and then they would get visited by Customs and then by CDC for reentry and 14-day quarantine. We ran a great program in March. We had very little incidents, and the setup between the State Health Department and CDC and the airport was a seamless barrier. And I think you may remember some of the video from Chicago Airport and some of the other airports around the country that didn't do quite the job that the team here at Hartsfield-Jackson did. And I couldn't be more proud of the staff that did that and handled it from operations and our partners at Customs and CDC. But for the third quarter, our domestic traffic was down 17%, and our international traffic was down 25%. Cargo, though, started to pick up. Our cargo picked up 20%, and just as an overall, and it depends on who you talk to, but most of all, I'd like to say that depending on when we get a vaccine or a therapeutic to handle the symptoms of COVID, I think we're going to be in a significant reduction of passengers and flights. There are people out there saying that the recovery will take domestically up to 2 years, and internationally it could take up to 3 to 5 years. So, and we believe that to be pretty much the case. Next slide 4, please. So, due to the economic engine that Hartsfield-Jackson is, our originating and destination passengers are key to the city and to the region for economic generation. In fiscal year 19 for Q3, we were at 4,900,000 O&D passengers for the quarter, and in fiscal year 20, we were down 800,000 to about 4 million passengers at that time, and almost all of that is due to March, month of March. For our O&D year-to-date, we were only off 1% at the end of the quarter. We were at 15.2 million for the fiscal year-to-date, and in 2020, we were at 15.1 million. So the impact is going to be felt going forward for the fourth quarter of fiscal year 20, much more than previously. Next slide, please. I do want to mention, though, since I've been here almost 20 months, I've never presented a slide to you where Hartsfield-Jackson has gone down in anything. We have always gone up in revenue, reduced expenses, and increased our passengers and our customer satisfaction. So this is a very sad day for myself and my team to report to you that everything is going in the wrong direction. Unfortunately, due to the enemy that we are fighting that is invisible and we don't have a cure or a fix, we're doing everything we can to fight the good fight and keep our business going, which we will absolutely do, and we will always do it safely and with security in mind. So our total passengers for the fiscal year third quarter, we're down about 4.6 million passengers for the quarter. That's 18.2%. And for the year-to-date, we're down 3.2 million. And you might say, well, why are you down more for the third quarter than you are for the fiscal year? Well, that's because in the January and February, we were on our track record of 5% gains. January and February were up 5% each, and we were on track for about 115 million passengers this year at Hartsfield-Jackson, up from 110. So the significant drop in March is the reason that we're down 3.2 million, even though we were up significantly in January and February. Just a total shock to the aviation system around the world. Let's go to slide 6, please. Due to the shock of the system, you can see that our gross revenues at our concessions and rent-a-car in fiscal year 19 were $250 million, and in fiscal year 20 they were down at about $206 million for the year-to-date, for the quarter, excuse me. We lost $42 million in concessions revenue, and that's down about 16%. Year to date, we were down in 2019. We were at the gross revenue was about $790 million, and for the year we're down about to $760 million. And again, that's a drop of about $32 million. The real decline in the concessions revenue is due to the decline in the passenger traffic and the closing of several concessions. As of April 1st, the end of the quarter, we had 214 concessions closed out of the 347, and I will tell you today we have about 310 closed of the 347. Next slide. The next slide is the money that we collect in rent or MAG from our concessions and rental car companies. For the fiscal year 19 in the quarter, we collected $38 million in revenue, and in fiscal year 20 we collected $33 million in revenue. Again, January and February were very strong, but March was just very difficult. We were down $5.5 million for the quarter. And year to date, our year to date number at this point, we had received $121 million by March of 2019, and in March of 2020 we're down to $113 million, down $7.8 million, which is about a 6.5% drop. The significant decline in rent-a-car and concessions, again, is due to COVID, but the bigger piece of this is due to our MAG suspension for the month of March that we put in effect through June that we can extend to July. So that MAG drop is where you see that real drop of the $42 million for the quarter for us. And these are the total concession sales, including services, which include our duty-free and currency exchange. Let's go to slide 9, please. Parking also is another place due to COVID that we took a significant drop. Our parking revenue year to date for the fiscal quarter was in fiscal 19 was $34 million. In fiscal 20 is $30 million. We're down about $4 million, which is a 12% drop, and that is due to passengers. The 97% drop in passengers that we saw on our low day, which happened to be April 8th. And I'll just give you a little perspective. On April 8th in 2019, we had about 70,000 passengers through the TSA checkpoint and about 305,000 passengers in the terminal that day. This April 8th, we had 2,300 passengers come through the checkpoint with a total of about 10,000 passengers in the building. So with those numbers, that's precipitating this tremendous drop in revenue that we're seeing. Our parking revenue, we also, to keep our parking and compete with the outside, we slashed our parking rates in half March 22nd and brought the parking rates down. And at this point, we are parking our employees at a significantly lower rate due to keeping them from parking at Satellite and getting on a shuttle bus where social distancing is difficult. We are bringing them onto the airport and parking where they can walk to the terminal and to the train to get to their workplace. So we're doing a lot of that. On March 23rd, we closed all of our park ride lots due to lack of demand, and we have stopped our shuttle bus operations. Next slide, please. So here's the revenues that we're going to be faced with. Our revenue versus our budget is down significantly for the quarter. We're down $25 million versus our budget and down $14 million due to our last year. The revenues are down in our landing fees, our rentals, our parking, our rent-a-car, and our concessions. And that's what's hurting us this year due to the lack of passengers. Our expenses are also lower than last year, which you see by the two green arrows. We're down $41 million from our budget for the third quarter and $1.6 million over last year. And that's because our timing of our new contracts and on-call contracts, we've reduced our operations, parking, and IT contracts. We also had some vacancies during the quarter, and our contract services are down $33.7 million. And that's due to delays in doing some runway rubber removal on the runways, or not opening our ATL Select parking lots, and underspending in our implemented AVS contracts. And our customer service contract, we also have not been able to execute, which is a $7 million reduction in our contract services. And also, our expenses are less, our personnel are a little lower, and our debt service is under by $1 million, and our contracts are $5.1 million. So despite the fact that our revenues are down, we're also watching our expenses very closely and reducing them wherever we can. Next slide. And the next slide is a great picture that shows you what happened in March. The red line represents our trends of TNC from 2017 to 2020, and you can see what happened with COVID-19. And the taxis, and the blue line is our taxis, which continues to fall off at this point. The drop-off started in February of 2020, and it continued all the way through April. Next slide, please. Our ground transportation, just to see where we sit right now for the Q1 through Q3 for the year. This is year-to-date numbers. 477,000 taxis in 2019 year-to-date, and in 2020 we're down to 337,000 taxis, and that trend continues. In contrast, if you look at the TNC graph, in 2019 there was 1.874 million TNC pickups, but in 2020, despite the drop in March, we were still up at 2.1 million, and that trend will continue probably as we recover. So despite COVID, taxis are down even further, and TNCs are still on the trend for the fiscal year to date. And now let's go to the next slide where we talk about the quarter, and you can see the taxis are continuing descending from 120,000 for the quarter to 96,000. And again, we had very strong January and February of 2020. Our TNCs went from 406,000 to 616,000, and that is with the drop in March in that number right there. So it still continues to trend in the direction that we've been talking about for the last year and a half. Next slide. So City Council asked us to come up with a plan to reduce and improve our customer service and reduce our wait times in our security office for ID badges. And we implemented a policy and provided you a plan back in October of 2019, and you can see the results of our plan. In quarter 2, we serviced 10,168 customers for badging. The average wait time back then was 25 minutes, and the average customer that was serviced under 30 minutes was 57% of that number. We implemented our appointment system. We put in some additional staff, and we brought some of our training online so the individuals could accomplish some of the training before getting there, and you can see the results. Not only did we service 11,469, which is an increase of almost 1,500 customers, but the wait time went down to 18 minutes, and the average percentage of customers that got their badges in 30 minutes or less was 90%. So that's all good news. I'm thrilled by our AGM of Security, Jan Lennon's performance in implementing the system, and her staff to improve our customer service down there in our security office. Next slide. So, COVID. I already told you all that the bottom was April 8th. We are now approaching the end of May, and I'm happy to report that instead of having a 97% drop in our customers, right now we're at about an 88%. Yesterday we had 10,000 customers through the checkpoint, which probably equates somewhere around 40 to 45,000 passengers in the building. The recovery is in the L shape, it appears. We have this steep drop-off, and we're having a very gentle, metered response going forward in recovery. We expect this to continue as people feel more and more comfortable traveling due to the mitigation that the airport and the airlines are doing to keep everyone safe and make them feel comfortable traveling. We're social distancing. We have our floor markings. We have signage throughout the facility and the plane train and at our gates. We've installed 250 hand sanitizers, and there's 150 more coming. We've ordered plexiglass partitions for our TSA and CBP corrals to provide a barrier in between the lines when you're in the lines. The airlines have installed plexiglass at all of their ticket counters and are handing out face coverings to their passengers. We are also handing out face coverings to our customers at the TSA checkpoint if they do not have one. If they would like one, we are giving them one. We have new PAs on our plane train, our SkyTrain, for messaging about social distancing and to wear face coverings. And we've removed seating to ensure social distancing in our concessions area, waiting areas, and our hold rooms by our gates. We have signage to ensure that we do it the best we can with social distancing in our terminal. Next slide. Our employees. We had a robust quarter where we hired or promoted 34 individuals to the positions that are there. Most of them are in maintenance in our operations and our command and control center, our C4 center. And we've had quite a bit of training going on remotely, 187 hours of training for our staff. Hazard pay was instituted by the mayor on May 11th of 2020 through June 30th. We currently have 441 of the 640 DOA staff that are eligible for receiving hazard pay. That's excluding our APD and AFRD staff, and that mostly is our maintenance department, operations department, security department, and our ground transportation department that have to be here, whether we have one flight or 600 flights, which is what we have today. Let's go to our next slide, please. Now we get into our capital program. Our ATL West deck is still scheduled to be complete. It's going to be constructed and complete by July, and we can open it in September of 2020 as a $224 million project. It's 5,700 spaces, and we're working with Peach Pass to ensure we have a touchless, frictionless experience, and that all is on track. I do want to say overarching, our capital plan is going full bore, full speed ahead, a good Navy term, and we're going to execute all we can during this time of reduced passenger demand to not impact customer experience while you're here. And almost all of our capital projects are going forward, and our partners with our stakeholders and our airline partners are very excited about all the things we're going to get done. Let's go to the next slide. The next slide is a project that is well underway, and we've talked about previously our much-needed 5 TSA lanes, additional 5 lanes in our South Security checkpoint. If you look at the graph, you can see the 5 lanes that are there now. They're in blue. Underneath it, you see DOA Area 2B. That's where the additional 5 lanes are being built. This was going to be built in 2 phases. We were going to do the 5 new lanes and then take down the 5 blue lanes out there and put new equipment in, and we're going to speed it up. And we're actually going to take the whole checkpoint now because we don't need it and do the whole checkpoint in one fell swoop. And that program will be open by December, and that's a $50 million project. So that's one of the benefits right now is we're able to accelerate some of the construction we have going on. Next slide. You can see this is what it looks like now in the terminal where we're building the 5 brand new checkpoint lanes. Next slide. Slide 19. We are also full speed ahead on our T-North 5-gate extension here. You can see that we're realigning the North Terminal Parkway. And the extension, you can see the dirt area. If you go to the bottom center of the page, you'll see 2 buildings, a gray building. The first building in the bottom is Fire Station 32. The building with the red or orange doors is the Delta GSE facility, which has already been rebuilt, which will be completed in June. We will start demolition of those 2 buildings at that time. We'll move the fire department out, and the 5-gate extension will come out of the North complex that you can see there. And we're going to rebuild the road and make it just a fabulous facility here going forward for United and American in our terminal. And we are going to rebuild Fire Station 32 on the south side of the airport over by Security Gate 1. So this is also well underway, and we expect this project to be done December 22 for about $330 million, and this will give us 5 additional gates. Next slide. The next slide is our plane train turnabout west extension. So what you're looking at there is our west curb, where we used to have all of our limos and vans, and that's all been moved to the other side of the the SkyTrain station. And in that dirt area, we're going to dig a 50-foot diameter hole How deep, Tom?
35-foot diameter, 50 feet.
50 feet deep, 35-foot diameter, and we're going to excavate out and join our current plane train and make a much faster turnaround here. And that drill rig is out there today, and that project is well underway to increase the speed of our plane train from 108 seconds to 90 seconds, which will give us a capacity gain without, and plus we'll add some trains, but we'll be able to handle the capacity as we return, and also will provide additional space for social distancing if we still have to social distance in 2023, which we're hopeful we're not, that we have a vaccine by then. Next slide. In order to build those 5 security checkpoint lanes, we're going to have an additional volume of passengers. We expect somewhere around 80 to 90,000 a day coming through our checkpoint. And to do that, we have vertical circulation issues as you come through the checkpoint. So what you see there is the back spine of the T concourse out there, where we're going to build additional escalators and 2 elevators, and that construction is going to start in 2021 and be complete by August of 2022 for $40 million. There's no point in bringing more people through the checkpoint if they just have to wait on the other side to get in an elevator or an escalator. And finally, the last slide. Before I talk about celebrating our frontline employees with our canopy that's lit blue there, I want to say that our recovery is well underway. It is moving very slowly. We hope to see a couple percentage points in recovery as we go. I've made the statement before, and I still believe it to be true, that based on bookings, my speaking with ACVB William Pate, that by the first quarter of calendar year 2021, we'll be well on our way to a recovery, and if we can get ourselves back to 50% of where we were, about 50 million passengers a year at that point, we think we'll be in very good position to have most of the airport open, businesses thriving, and our revenue generation and economic engine well underway to providing the services that we do for the Atlanta and for the state. And at that point, accept any questions, please.
Ms. Polendini, this is Councilmember Overstreet. I think Chair Dickens said that he had to step off of the call for a little bit.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. Can you see the speaker lineup?
No, I cannot.
Okay.
But I can get started. I have a couple questions myself. Actually, yeah, 3. One was mine, one was both of ours, and one was his. So I'll start with, he wants to know about allowing the travel from Brazil and Russia. Where are we with plans and actions around those countries with the escalation of the COVID cases?
So, Councilmember Overstreet, the President yesterday implemented a travel ban similar to the ones in China and to Europe that are still in place, that you cannot come into the country from Brazil unless you are a U.S. citizen. So there are now 15 airports that have CDC at them. We happen to be one of them, that if we get a flight from, say, LATAM, which is an airline that flies out of Brazil, or GOL, coming into the United States, it lands here, we will go through those same procedures where those U.S. citizens will be screened and quarantined for 14 days at their home. If they obviously have symptoms, they're going to a hospital from here. But yes, there is a travel ban in place for Brazil. I am unaware of a travel ban for the Soviet Union at this time.
Okay. When you find out, if you could let us know, just
Sure.
Email me, that would be good. Next question. Let's see. And by the way, thank you for that presentation. It's always good to see those numbers. Just right off the top of my head, I'm very proud of the work that you all have done behind the scenes with the badging and security. Looks like we are really taking a different turn from where we were before, and I appreciate all of those changes.
Thank you, Councilmember Overstreet. We have a great team out here.
Okay. So another question. I know we had our concessionaires conference call on Zoom about, 2-3 weeks ago. And I want to know what's our regular schedule for those. And when is the next one? I would love to be invited. And what has your feedback been from the actual concessionaires? Have you received any information about how they think that it's going? Do you think that they find it enlightening, or they want to know more information from you, or did it go well?
So, Councilmember Overstreet, so yes, we did get some feedback. Everybody seemed very pleased with the conversation, and we are going to schedule one, and we're working out the schedule right now with all the individuals, and we're going to do another one. We're going to do one a month towards the end of each month, and
Okay.
just so you know, the director of concessions, Marlene, is having a bi-weekly, every 2 weeks, she's having another call with them to get into the actual specifics. There's one Thursday, the first one will start Thursday, then every other week she will have a call with the concessionaires to discuss issues and items that they want to talk about. But the feedback was good. We are working collaboratively with our airline stakeholders for their recovery plan, because I think, as you know, many of the concourses are currently not being utilized. So as the airlines recover, we will provide them if let's just say Southwest is going to start adding flights back on the C concourse, we would advise the concessionaires so they can come back to business, the ones that want to come back to business. But we are also working going forward with plans to figure out how we can help the business return as fast as we can. Obviously, we need the airlines first, then we can support the concessionaires. We got to have the passengers in the building, and we're looking at all other kinds of technologies too. Do we work with a gate delivery, grab and go, it's called? There's some technologies out there for paying with touchless, and also to make sure that we put up the plexiglass at the cash registers and all of the things to make our customers ensure that they feel safe while they're here at the airport.
Okay, sure. So all of that sounds to me like what we're talking about. It's just all about communication, making sure that we're all staying on the same page, because, this whole situation is very fluid, and we have to just continue with the communication. So I'm pleased to hear that apart from what you are already, your monthly conversation with everyone, that they're also doing bi-weeklies with your members. And so you said Thursday, are we talking tomorrow?
Yes,
for the first one, or next Thursday?
Yep, the first one at the director level will be tomorrow. The monthly will be with myself and the senior staff to answer any of the questions. But the director of concessions will host a meeting, and she can talk about specifics about deliveries, and she's the true expert on the nuts and bolts of the business. For the higher level meeting, we'll have that higher level meeting to answer policy questions, and once a month towards the end of the month. And I'll have a date. I'm supposed to have a date out today for the meeting. They're working it as we speak. I'll ensure that we get you invited.
Okay, good. And I'll give Marlene a call also, just to check in with her. And so I appreciate that update. Ms. Polendini, do we have anyone else with any questions?
No, ma'am, I don't see anyone else in the speaker's queue.
Okay. So with that, I guess that's going to end our time with you, Mr. Selden, unless there's anything else you'd like to add.
No, I just want to say thank you to the council for the tremendous support you all provide us here at Hartsfield-Jackson. You enable us to be the best, and it's really a team effort between you all, my staff, and the mayor's office. And we all have the same vision, and we want to recover the business, get everybody back to work, provide the jobs that are here, and get these members back, and get our business back, and continue to be the world's busiest airport. And just so you know, the airlines plan, at least from what we're hearing, is they're going to recover their hubs first, especially Delta. We believe you'll see some international flying coming shortly. here back to Atlanta, and we have great connectivity throughout their system. So they're going to feed the flights from their other airports and from other cities, and Atlanta is going to be one of the major places of recovery for Delta Airlines. So we couldn't be happier, and we're very excited about being their partner going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like great news. Okay, well, thank you and stay safe.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so, Ms. Bulandini, where are we on our agenda now? Are we down to?
There are no
any other
further
subsequent?
items. No, ma'am. All legislative items and presentations have been dispensed with as of now.
I said public comment.
I'm sorry. No, that there was, we played public comment in the beginning of the meeting. There isn't any for the end.
And that is it? Okay. All right. Well, with that then, I guess we are in line to be adjourned. Do we need a second for that?
If someone's on the line and would like to make a second to adjourn, that would be good.
And one of my council members, please.
Councilmember I.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.